Okay, so here's the thing. That I think I haven't shared this with nobody.
In this video, I'm gonna share with you how getting married made me millions of dollars. You're gonna hear how I met my wife, why we ended up getting married so quickly, and hear her perspective on how it is being married to me running a business. Before I met Jennifer, I was just wasting a lot of time. I was having fun. That's when I ended up reading the book, How to Be a 3% Man. Followed the instructions in the book. Told me to write down everything I wanted in my ideal partner. I did that. Circle my top 10 must-have, cannot live withouts. Boom, what do you know? 2 months later, manifested Jennifer. And we had our first date. On the first date, she checked out 9 out of the 10 boxes that were on my list. By the second date, she checked off all 10. And 3 months later, we were married.
My name is Jennifer. I'm Brian's wife. I have been working for adspin.com in the last 2 years. Okay, so here's the thing. That I think I haven't shared this with nobody. When he shared that to me, when he opened a journal to me, the title of it was Dear You. And when I finished reading it, I was just very impressed of how detailed a person can be imagining your partner. He was so detailed and so specific that he knew how this person was laugh. And he wrote that. He's like, and when you laugh, you do this gesture of covering your mouth that I think it's so sweet, something like that. When I read that, I got the chills. I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy.
Originally, I didn't want that. I just wanted her to be my wife. And that was really helpful because I would get done with work and she would take my focus off work.
Yeah.
Because we would just be spending quality time together. But again, she, and I started dating back when I was doing around, 20, 30K a month by myself. But what ended up happening was, I started scaling the business and I would come, and she had a job back then in Phoenix. So we would come home every day from work. I'd come home from the office and she'd come home from her job and we would just spend quality time. So what ended up happening was we ended up moving to Miami and she didn't have a job anymore. And as a result, I was going into the office every single day and coming home. Yeah. And she was taking care of the house, which I liked.
So I started as his assistant, right? So like planning all his schedules and travels and masterminds. And afterwards, we couldn't work together, to be very honest. It was a couple of challenges there when we started working.
So for example, we launched our admin mastermind and we had an event to plan. I didn't know how to plan an event. But I knew that she could probably figure it out because she's very detail oriented. She likes hosting. We both like hosting. Yeah. And I just told her the vision that I wanted and she started working at it. And so I started slowly kind of having her be my personal assistant. I just kind of gave her a bunch of stuff to do. I was like, laundry, calendar, travel, shipping. Oh yeah, because we would send books out to clients and we still do gifts to clients when they come to work with us. And she would be in charge of those things. And so one thing after another just kept putting on her plate. Yeah. And then eventually, when I introduced her to the rest of the team, because I was like, you're already pretty much working full time. So like, you might as well be my personal assistant, but also the, company assistant as HR. And so I introduced her to the team.
Then we stopped working together because it didn't work.
As our marriage started to be affected a little bit about work, for the same thing, because we didn't have clear expectations. He was expecting this. On the other hand, I was first starting with him in the business, so I was a little bit clueless on what to do, how to do it, and anything. So I was also in the back end, I was not interacting with the team. I was not in the team meetings. So my only support was him, and sometimes I was bothering him with some questions hey, how do I do this, or how do you want me to do this, or so that's when we made a pause and we're yeah, this is not gonna work.
We did it for 3 or 4 months. It didn't work out, and that was just because we didn't know how to manage the marriage and the business, and that was a big learning lesson. I didn't know how personally I'll take responsibility of being her boss and also her husband, when to and how to navigate that communication channel. How do I, discipline her as a boss? And then how do I do it in a way where she still likes me as her husband,
How to differentiate him as a boss and as a husband. That was another thing that I was the discussion was on the table, oh, but I'm your boss, and I'm excuse me? You're not my boss. You're my husband. But yeah, that was another challenge. I guess a lot of ego in the beginning for us, but now we have learned how to separate that, and it has been so much better. Like in the last 2 years, it's 180 degrees.
And I was like, let's try it again. Let's agree that it's going to be a learning lesson, and let's just go all in.
But this time, I'm not going to be like the person in charge of you. This time, you're going to be part of a team, the operations team. So that was another good thing.
Yeah, so I basically split up the role and responsibility where I was like, okay, you're still going to be helping us as a husband and wife and a family to help you out with like the household stuff, right? Which is what she's the best at, and really what she helps me out the most with, because she takes care of all those things. And in the business, she's going to be part of the operations team. She's going to work with Nick, with Demi, and help out with HR, with payroll, with a bunch of different things. And then, of course, event planning. So now she felt a part of the team. Now she felt even more involved in the business.
Yeah.
And that allowed us to be able to come together even more as a married couple, because now she's even more bought into the business. She's even more involved in the business. And now we're talking about the business even when we're spending quality time together, because it's even better. And it's like, well, we're planning our future together even more. So the first time didn't work out, but now it's been a lot better.
And a lot of people actually ask us, like, how do you guys work together? You guys live together? You guys are husband and wife? Like, how do you guys? But I guess it's everything about having clear expectations, have very clear the vision that you guys have in the marriage, right? What's the route? What's the path that you guys are going to go through? And what's the goal? What's the goal in your marriage, you know?
The advice that I would give to my old self when we tried it the first time is you have to be very clear about when you're speaking as a boss versus when you're speaking as a husband, right? So one thing that I learned early on, especially when I would hire some friends, would be like, look, I'm going to talk to you as the boss right now, and it's only purely based off of the actions I see that are not happening that I need to see in order for this to work. So I'm not attacking you personally. This is an attack on what I've seen you do for the work to make it better, right? And so I would have to set that frame in the very beginning. What I didn't do before, I would just start telling her, this is wrong, don't do this. And you know what the worst thing was? I wouldn't set that frame, but I didn't tell her this until she, basically almost broke down in front of me one time and told me, like, you treat me differently than everybody else. You're harder on me than everybody else, because I see it on the meetings. And why is that? It's like, you're ruthless with me, but not them. And I was like, huh. And I couldn't argue with her because she was right. And what I realized was I held her to a higher standard than everybody else on the team because she was my wife, because she lives with me, because she sees me every single day, because she knows, in my opinion, a lot more about the business because she's went through it since the very beginning. So I almost expected her to know all these things.
One of the things, like as a strategy, I guess I can say, that we started to implement to have that separation of like business and marriage was to include in our days, or as like weekly date nights, because that was something that made us, okay, this is time to disconnect, this is time to talk about us, about our future. Another thing that we also did on the weekends, for example, every Sunday we were planning our day, we were planning our week, but we were also visualizing a lot. So we were looking at a lot of videos, we were looking at a lot of like YouTube videos, we were not always like Netflix and chill, we were always like looking, okay, different properties in different parts of the world, or like travels, or we were just getting a lot of inspiration of like, okay, if we dial in this business, this is how much we can achieve, so that gave us a lot of inspiration doing that as a couple, sharing that as a couple.
One value that we have that we've been super good about is not going to bed angry, right? And we actually been reading the Bible recently together, and it says in the Bible, it says never go to bed, never let the sun set while you're still angry. And when we read that, we immediately looked at each other. When we read that together, we were like, damn, we've already been
because we have done it a couple
doing
times.
that, right? So like, even if the business is going, even if stuff in the business with us is maybe not the best, or even if we're not on the best terms as a couple, we still have an agreement that we'll talk about it, and we'll have an open and honest discussion. And she'll tell me what she doesn't like about me, I'll tell her what I don't like about her, and we'll say, okay, how can I work on that?
But what I do like is that each of us, we assume like we accept, we apologize like right away. It's not that like that
Yeah.
friction going on of like ego or something like that. It's like if he messed up in something, he right away like apologized, and vice versa. So that's a good thing to have, a good quality to have in a relationship.
That was crazy. I don't know if I would drink something that says dark art.
I would. I definitely would.
I did not do, I'm not gonna lie here and say like, oh yeah, I did the same thing and I wrote down my 10 things that I want in a man. Like that's a good way to do, but I didn't do it. You know, I left a lot of things in God's hands, you know, and right now I say God. Previously I was always like the universe, the destiny, whatever it is, but now I'm like, yeah, it was God's work. I did a lot of prayers of like, I want to have a husband that will be willing to travel with me. And another thing is that you learn a lot about your previous relationship, a lot, right? You know, like, hey, about this past relationship, I don't want this in a partner. So you grab all this and then you finally have your list. I didn't wrote it down, but I knew exactly what I wanted in a partner, and I wanted a person that I could experience life with, travel with, had a great relationship with family. That was a big one for me. But yeah, so I think if you're like clear with what you want and just don't settle down with anything, you know.
Before I met her and I was doing, you know, the fun kind of playboy lifestyle, you know, dating funnel, having fun, hanging out, you know, all that stuff, I was stuck at around 22, you know, maybe 30K 1 month in my business at the time, max, right? Probably around 15 to 20K more than anything. A year later, after I met Jennifer and we got married, we hit 7 figures in our business, like that. And it was because I got focused on the business. Because before I wasn't focused, I was just having fun, messing around and bored. When I got focused and I cut all that stuff out and I had my girl, right? I had my wife, my partner. I was able to laser in and lock in on only the business. And that's what propelled me to success. That's how we made our first 7 figures in revenue. And we've just been making more and more every year since.